Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Parenting by Alok show. It's a warm afternoon today, and myself, Alok, father of two sons, nine trees, husband to one of the most beautiful princesses of the world. I'm an engineer, an entrepreneur, a traveler, founder of two successful running companies, an author at heart, and now a parenting expert. I'm having a mission to help hundreds of thousands of people and parents bring the best version of their children. So, friends, today I'm here with a surprise topic but very effective one which we can apply in our own lives, and that is communication. So, communication is a particular thing which we do since the inception of our birth, correct? So, we start communicating. Communication is a very important tool. Without communication, we cannot tell and understand what we need to do, right? So, in order to do that, I'll be focusing more towards communication within the family, with the children, and how you can do effective communication in order to help your children grow, correct? So, what is a communication? First of all, if you go the literally meaning, communication is a medium in which you want to convey your message to somebody. That is called communication. Am I right? So, a method or a medium to tell whatever you are thinking and whatever you are, willing to tell to somebody else. That is called communication. So, communication is one, and effective communication is a very critical point adding to it. So, I'm today going to talk about effective communication with the children, correct? So, to work effectively with children, you have to be having a very good communication skill, because in the family, parents and different family members are there. They keep on communicating with the child in different moods, correct? So, first of all, I'll focus on the different means of communication, the different modes of communication. Am I right? So, communication is much more than words going from one person's mouth to another person's ear. Normally, what we understand is we are communicating, that means we are telling something, it is going to somebody's ears and he is listening and he will be reacting according to that, right? So, in addition to the words themselves, the tone, the quality of voice, eye contact, language, physical proximity, visual clues, and overall body language, these all adds to communication. These all convey messages. So, what I'll do, I'll differentiate between the verbal communication and the non-verbal communication. Verbal is what we are saying. That is one part of communication, just by saying something, and then the receptor is there to listen it and do it. But apart from that, there are so many other means of communication, correct? So, coming to non-verbal, there are n number of things, right? So, I'll start with, even I'm not focusing on the written communication. The written communication is one part to it. So, verbal and written, it is there everywhere. But my focus today is the non-verbal communication part, correct? So, what all includes non-verbal? Your eye contact with your children, right? Your confidence level, your tone, your overall body language, correct? These are all the things which convey messages. So, this non-verbal communication are often undervalued, yet these comprise a significant portion of total communication. So, in choosing communication techniques to be used with children, the parents, they may consider cultural differences, particularly with regard to touch and personal space, but they have to play a very important role. The parents have to keep an eye and keep a check on the quality of communication which they are giving. correct? So this communication, from the parents to the children is based on honesty, caring, respect, and a direct approach towards any sensitive issues, any emotional issues. So good communication is key to the identification of health issues, adherence to a treatment plan, and improved psychological and behavioral outcomes. Correct? So optimal communication, addresses both the cognitive and emotional needs of children in the families. Am I right? Okay. So to again summing up in between the verbal, non-verbal, verbal plus written plus non-verbal which is a variety of things in it. As I told you, the voice, the tonality, the body language, the eye contact, the proximity. So I'll be very clear with you. These are again theoretical things in it. What I meant by elaborating on this is we have to be very very specific. Correct? There is a saying also called specific is terrific, right? You have to be very very specific in terms of your communication. आप अपने बच्चों के साथ कोई भी बात करते हो, सपोज आप कहते हो बच्चे से कि पढ़ो, राइट? वो कहता है कि ओके आई एम रीडिंग, व्हाट इज ही रीडिंग, व्हाट इज शी रीडिंग? यू हैव टू बी very very specific in that particular term. So reading a particular subject is fair enough, reading a particular novel is good, reading newspaper and articles, magazines, that is also, but you have to be very particular about whenever you are asking questions, be very specific to get specific answers. That is a good quality of communication. Correct? Suppose I'll give you a live example. Suppose you are going somewhere and midway you ask somebody about the destination, how distant it is. आप पूछते हो कि ये जगह कितनी दूर है. यदि वो आपको कहे कि बहुत दूर, it doesn't make any sense. बहुत दूर का क्या definition होता है? So it has to be identified and defined in certain values. So specific means you have to be very clear about the particular values, options, right? If you are saying I'm going to some place which is very far, so you need to specify in your own sense, saying it is maybe 15 kilometers or maybe 100 kilometers, right? That specification has to be very very immensely agreed upon when you are talking to children. So when you say go and play, you have to very clear about what he or she is going to play. Correct? How much time he is going to play. बच्चे कहते हैं ना पापा मम्मी थोड़ी देर खेल के आता हूँ. What is that थोड़ी देर? You have to define in time, duration of time, maybe 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hour, whatever. Correct? So there has been certain examples of effective communication wherein if you start doing all this effectively, you will be getting better results from your children, and children will very very honestly be accepting this fact that whatever I have to do, I have to be very very specific. Correct? Now touch is one positive supportive technique that is effective from birth through childhood. Touch is a very sensitive thing, and that is a very effective tool of communication as such. Very very effective tool, because when a child is born, he doesn't know any language, right? He doesn't know anything, but somebody when takes him in his lap or her lap, he feels comfortable. That touch gives him a sense of security and comfort. There are certain people, and people may be doing the best out of themselves, but the children, when they are not comfortable because of the touch, they start crying. So touch is a very very important aspect of communication. You must be you must have heard, like, if somebody is ill in your house, just sit beside him and touch on his forehead gently. If he is having a headache or something, he'll be cured. Why it is being done? Because The guy who is suffering from a pain, he has, you know, a sense of comfort from the person sitting besides him. So that affection, that love is going to take care of the pain he is going through, and that guy is cured. Correct? So that is why I am very much focusing upon the touch part, this non-verbal communication part, in which touch is a very, very sensitive thing, and it can be a positive supportive technique that is effective from your birth till adulthood. Correct? Touch can convey warmth, comfort, reassurance, security, trust, caring, support, confidence, encouragement, everything. So all those positive things are there if you know, apply doing a touch method of caring your child. So there are certain examples. In infancy also you must have seen messages of love, security, comfort are conveyed through holding, cuddling, and patting. Suppose your child comes off from the school and says, Papa or Mummy, I have done this. Give a hug. Give a hug. That is a touch, which you're conveying. You're conveying your love through the touch, through the hug. Correct? So that gives an immense confidence boosting in your child. Correct? So infants, especially the newborns, they do not have cognitive understanding of words they hear or the sense of emotional support. At that time they don't have anything of this kind, but they can feel, they can interpret, and then they can respond to the gentle, loving, supporting hands caring for them. As I told you, a newborn doesn't have any that kind of a sense to understand your words or your emotions, but the touch is sufficient enough to give him a comfort, and he understands that this particular person, whoever is there, he is there to take care of me. So that goes automatically in his mind, and he is comfortable, he starts laughing. Correct? So toddlers and preschoolers find it very soothing and comforting to be held, right, and bagged with arms, with cuddling. They are very, very comfortable because they are smaller kids, and they want this thing to have a effective sense of security and encouragement in them. Now after touch there is a vital point which is called eye contact. Yeah, whenever we talk to the children, and if they are talking to you straightforward with eye contact, that means they are confident. So communication in children is enhanced by attentiveness and openness with direct eye contact. By body languages, body languages also conveys attentiveness and openness. Correct? So direct eye contact is a very effective tool. As I told you, touch is a powerful means of communication, but this eye contact is also equally important. Toddlers and preschoolers often find touch in the form of cuddling, right, which I told you, and even older children who prize their independence find that a person's, at a parent's hug or pat on the back helps them feel more secure. A child can communicate more easily with a person who is at eye level and at a comfortable conversation distance. So suppose you are there and the guy in front of you is at a very far off distance, then that eye contact would be disrupted, and even he or she will be having, trying to speak louder. So at that moment of time, the interaction level goes down, the attentiveness goes down. So there should be a proper, distance, right? There is a proper distance of maybe X, Y, Z, in which you have to be comfortable along with the children who can, see in your eyes, you can see in their eyes and start communicating. Okay, I have a question like there is a problem with children related to no mood for studies. Okay, I'll be answering this question later on. Give me some time. Fine. So School age children and adolescents appreciate giving and receiving hugs and getting a reassuring pat on the back, right? So when they start getting this kind of a reassurance by, hugging, cuddling, patting, they feel very, very comfortable. Children's familiarity and comfort with their physical surroundings affect communication very more. So I have covered the touch, I have covered, the eye contact. Now coming to the physical surroundings. Physical surroundings also give, a very effective way of communication. Like, I'll give you an example. If you are in a school, you are made to feel that you are in a school. There is a board, maybe old times there happens to be a blackboard, now a interactive board which is going on in their classes, right? There are school desks and bench, correct? So this environment tells you that you are in a school and you are here to study. There will be teacher coming to teach you. So that mental frame is made just because of the surroundings. You are in an office. Your office has a setup wherein you have office desks, computers, right? Wherein when you enter into the office, you 100% feel that today I'm here only to do work. You are not there for physical activities, physical exercises. You are not in a gym. So if you go in a gym, you will find different apparatuses, right, which gives you a sense that you are in a place wherein you have come here for physical workouts, correct? You born in a temple, mosque, church, whatever, religious place. Religious place also gives you a feeling that today you are here to pray, whoever your god is. That doesn't make difference, but that physical environment gives you enough, tells you everything about the what you need to do. So that is an important tool of being effective in terms of communicating. So that environment is communicating to you that you are here for a particular and specific targeted job. So the targeted job can be, if you are in a school, studies. If you are in a religious place, you are there to worship. If you are in a gym, you are there to work out. If you are in a restaurant, you are there to eat something. So this physical environment gives you enough sense and they communicate you so many things, correct? Similarly, even if in hospitals, when you go, you see different kinds of beds and apparatuses. So you feel that today I'm here to do my health checkups. So that goes without saying, correct? So see, whatever topics I take and discuss, they are all based on practical scenarios. Theories are different, the researches are different, but how to implement in our own lives is very, very important. That is what my role is here to tell you about. Everybody is communicating, right? Everybody is communicating. Even the dumbs are communicating with the help of different languages, right? That languages are not verbal, they're non-verbal languages. They talk in terms of some symbols, correct? And body language is always there. So what my focus is, again I'll be repeating it, my focus is communication has to be very, very effective, and those non-verbal tools of communications are more powerful than the verbal communications. Another example I'll give you. Suppose you are working in an office and you have an employee, you pat his back saying, okay, well, good job done. So that patting and the words, they are going to give him a lot of confidence, saying, okay, I have been praised. He'll not say anything, but he'll feel a lot of confidence in him, saying that I have been praised. So that patting is very much important. So that effective tool of communication needs to be applied in your children, correct? So a child's perspective is probably very different from an adult's, correct? But creating a supportive, inviting environment for children, includes the use of, very smaller things, maybe like child size furniture, colorful banners, colorful, toys, posters, then different arts which communicates many things. I'll give you, since we are all here parents talking to each other, uh, आप देखते होंगे कि when a lady is pregnant, normally we tell them to put pictures of babies in their rooms. Am I right? Why we do so? Again, this adds to the physical environment, because when there is a picture of a baby inside that particular bedroom where that lady is there, so she has a feel that something related to kids is happening around me. So that environment is telling her to take care of herself, take care of a child, be systematic, so that the child is not affected with anything else. Correct? Okay. Individuals have different comfort zones for physical distances. The parent should be aware of differences and should move cautiously when meeting children, their families, and respecting each other's individual personal space. For example, standing over the child and family can be intimidating, right? Instead, the parent should bring a chair and sit near the child to start an effective communication. So this action puts you on the same eye level of the child, right? So what happens normally, if you go to schools, there is a teacher who normally stands, and there are students who sit on the desk. So there is a downward inclination of vision. The children are sitting at a distance. Maybe the front row children would be closer, but think about the last benches. Their vision is too far, so the teachers are not able to communicate properly, and that is why we normally say the back benches are not ready to listen and not ready to lead. That is why, because there is no eye contact, there is a power which is required for the teacher to speak loudly, enabling him to reach to those children who are sitting at the back. Correct? So very important and very effective. Now coming to this is what the modes of communication are there. There are more things to it, like attentiveness. Attentiveness is one more important tool of communication from both the angles, either it is you as a parent or the child. So the parent should be intentional about giving the attention to the speaker. I mean here is the children. If the children are telling you something and if you are not attentive, that communication is not happening. Understand, parents, this is a very normal problem to पेरेंटिंग, दैट हम लोग अपने आप में इतने बिजी रहते हैं और बच्चा कुछ बोलता है, हमने उसकी बात को सुना नहीं. वी डू नॉट गिव ईयर्स टू द चिल्ड्रन. तो जब तक हम सुनेंगे नहीं, द सेम थिंग दे विल बी रेसिप्रोकेटिंग विद अस. व्हेन वी टॉक दे विल नॉट लिसन. So they have to be very, very attentive. You have to be attentive for them to be telling them to be attentive. Correct? Now, empathy, impartiality, and there are so many other things which tells you more about communicating. So what I told you was some basic things of communication, in which non-verbal communication was one of the important topic which I covered. Now visual communication is another topic which has to be taken care of. Visual communication means eye contact, which I told you earlier. So eye contact is a communication connector. Can you relate to it? Eye contact is a communication connector. It connects two people. Even if you are not talking anything, if you have eye contact, you can start understanding what the other guy wants to tell you. Correct? And we have normally seen in movies or even stories that somebody can without uttering a single word from their mouth, they can communicate their love, affection their hatred, even गुस्सा, प्यार, सब कुछ आप आंखों के द्वारा बता सकते हो. सो द आईज, विजुअल कम्युनिकेशन इज very important, and these eyes are giving you a sense of connector between two people. They are connectors. This eye contact is a connector. Making eye contact help confirm attention and interest between the individuals communicating, right? Direct eye contact may be uncomfortable to some people in some cultures, but anybody who is sensitive towards this eye contact, right, they'll be definitely responding to it. Okay, then tips to enhance listening and communication skills. So I told you verbal communication, non-verbal communication, and non-verbal communication had different set of parameters in which touch, eye contact, environment, and alertness, these all things were covered. Now there are certain tips to enhance listening and communication skills, right? Children understand more clearly than they speak. Am I clear? Children understand more clearly than they speak. A child may not be able to express himself, but he is more clear, in terms of listening to you rather than speaking. To develop conversation with children, ask open-ended questions rather than questions requiring yes or no responses, right? So there are two kinds of questions, open-ended and closed-ended. The closed-ended answers are either yes or no. Suppose you ask your child, like, bhook lagi hai, are you hungry? He'll say yes or no. Rather than asking this, you can say, today we have planned to eat this and this. What is your view? So these are open-ended questions. They'll be coming up with certain answers which will not be ending into yes or no. So you have to, ask your children open-ended questions for effective communication. Now, comprehension is increased when the parents uses different methods to present and share information. So what is those methods wherein parents have to present and share information? They need to talk in terms of being specific, as I told you. Figures, numbers, some data. Don't just say that I have seen the entire world, मैंने पूरी दुनिया देखी है, or because I have seen the world, you have to follow whatever I am saying. Give him some data. Like, I was there, I had faced this, I came across certain things. Make a story with some data and then present in front of your children. So this will give you a very clear thought and a clear perception of what you want to see, right? Encourage your child to be an active participant through creating a respectful listening environment. What do you mean by respectful listening environment? An environment wherein whatever you say, the children will listen, act, and whatever they say, you listen attentively and then respond to them. So this respectful listening environment is very much required in your house, in your family. In this environment, children express their concerns very effectively, ask questions, and they participate in the development of their own personality. So if you are very strict, right, and you are not allowing the child to ask questions, so he or she will not be able to grow that way, in that fashion, right? So encourage your child to be participative and give him an environment. Give him a respectful listening environment. Please mention these three words: respectful listening environment, right? Now, clothing and physical appearance, they are also very, very important in terms of communication. Clothing, physical appearance, and objects being held are visual communicators. As I told you, eye contact was the prime one, but the way you clothe yourself, your physical appearance, and the objects which are being held around you, or maybe you are having certain things in your hand. These are visual communicators which communicate to the people sitting across you, listening you, seeing you, because they also communicate so many things, right? So children may react to an individual's presence on the basis of, a white lab coat, a bushy beard, or a syringe, or a video game in the hand. Sorry. Did you get my point? Children, maybe a child is there, he doesn't know in which environment he is, but when he sees a person with a syringe in his hand, he certainly responds to it. He understands that this is maybe a doctor kind of a person who has come to inject me certain medicine. So without saying, your physical appearance tells him a lot. Correct? Now suppose you are there, your parents, your father comes with a video game in his hand. The moment the child sees a video game in his hand, he understands that communication starts happening, that my father has brought a game for me, it's a gift for me, or I have achieved something against which I have got this particular reward. So there is a communication happening. Correct? So the parents needs to think ahead and anticipate visual stimuli a child may find startling and those that may be pleasing, and to make appropriate adjustment when possible. Correct? That example which I gave you, a nurse or a doctor carrying a syringe coming to the child, without saying it, it goes like, okay, this is a doctor and has come to me to inject me a medicine or something. Okay, now some children and some adults are visual learners. They learn best when they can see or read instructions, demonstrations, diagrams, or informations. Right? Using various methods of presenting and sharing information will increase comprehension for such children. I'll give you an example to explain this particular point. Suppose there is a text written in a book saying, like there is a family tree, or maybe the Mughal emperors, Babur, Shahjahan, Akbar, Aurangzeb, or whatever. There are texts written. A child can go through the text, right? And maybe he may try to memorize it. In spite of that, if you make a tree, a family tree type of thing, in which it classifies that he was the guy who started Mughal emperorship, and his son was this, then he had 2 sons, then he has further 2 sons, or something like that. So if you make a presentation or a chart like this, that visual thing gives children a better understanding. And this is what I have implemented in my family. Friends, I'll tell you, whenever there is a sort of this kind of a variation or classifications of certain things, maybe a biology chapter or a physics or something like that, you can start doing it from right now, making it on a piece of paper in terms of certain diagrams, certain charts. So those charts and diagrams help your children communicate effectively and understanding in a smarter way. So those charts would be, there's nothing big thing in it, you can start making your own. Correct? It is just you have to bring out the things from the text and make it a chart kind of a thing. That's it. Concepts can be presented more vividly by using developmentally appropriate photographs, videos, toys, computer programs, charts, graphs, and anything by using written and spoken words alone. You must have seen presentations going on in corporates or offices or even in schools. Teacher try to teach you through presentations. Why those presentations are required? Because they communicate faster. These are the summaries of maybe the entire chapter, and if they are presented in a graphical mode, a presentation mode, or a chart mode, so they communicate effectively with the children. Correct? So that particular selection of technical tools and material that depends on the parent what tool he wants to do, because it is he or she who's spending the most of the time with the child. He or she can understand that my child understands better by this method or by this method. Maybe by effective listening the child gets in everything, fair enough. But there are children who effectively learn faster in terms of seeing to a graph or seeing to a chart kind of thing. Now communication is happening in different modes. Now comes to the voice, the tone of voice. Your tone of voice is again communicating so many other things. You can just say, may I please come in? This shows your humbleness. Correct? You can also ask the same thing, may I come in? Kind of thing. So you are very rude in that sense. So the spoken words comes to mind most often when communication is the topic. The word you speak and the tone you apply, the two parts of it, the words and the tone. Correct? So communication, however, consists of not only what is said but also the way it is said, the tone I was talking about, how it is being told. That tone is very much required. The tone and quality of voice is often communicative more than the words themselves. I'm very clear in this. Whatever you say, those particular things have to be, said in a particular tone. Suppose, for instance, take, you want to convey love to your child, so you cannot use a louder voice. Hey child, come here, I want to love you. No, this is not the tone you should be applying. Right? What you should be doing, like, hey child, come, I want to give you a hug. So that gives an effective communication to him. Similarly, if you want to scold him or her for something, you cannot just be very mild saying, please come, I want to scold you. You have to be very loud in that particular sense. Come here, why are you doing this? So this particular tone is going to tell him, he'll not understand the word, whatever you have said, but by the tone only he'll be, clear in his mind that आज तो मुझे डांट पड़ने वाली है. I'm going to be scolded because of whatever I have done. But this tone, in spite of not listening to your words perfectly, that tone will tell him what to do and what not to do. Am I right, friends? Yeah. So, because infants' cognitive understanding of word is very limited, their understanding is based on tone and quality of voice. A soft, smooth voice is more comforting and soothing to infants than a loud, snarling or harsh voice. I'm very much clear, I believe. For an infant, their cognitive understandings are zero. Correct? So when you speak gently, softly, with a smooth voice, they understand that you are there to take care of him. Correct? So infants can sense from the tone of voice whether the caregiver, the carer, right, is angry, happy, frustrated, or calm, or going to take care of me or not. Right? So the parents can assess how aware of and sensitive to these messages infants are, and by observing their body languages as well. So those infants, the young ones, they don't know anything about the life. They don't have any, instinct of cognitive understanding of words and phrases and anything going around it. But only the tonality, the tone and the body language. They understand all this without saying. So infants are relaxed when they hear a very calm and a happy caregiver, and tense and rigid when they hear an angry, frustrated caregiver. So it's very simple. Suppose there is an infant and there is a toddler doing something. All of a sudden, if he or she, hears a loud voice, right? He's afraid, starts crying. Why? Because he understands this sound is not friendly to him or her. It doesn't give him a calm environment, and that is why he starts crying. Correct? So children can detect anger, frustration, joy and other feelings that voices convey, even when the accompanying words are incongruent. They don't understand words, right? Those words are very incongruent to them, but they still feel, and they can detect anger, they can detect frustration, joy, happiness, everything. So for parents it is very much important to strive to make words and their intended meaning, should be matching while communicating with the children. The parents have to very be careful. Am I right, parents? You can apply this in your own family members, your children, correct? When you start doing it, no, you'll be finding it very interesting. You just, so these are all experiments which you are doing for your own child. Keep going, do experiments, and these are very simple things. You are doing it on a daily basis. Just do certain amendments, certain co-corrections, I would say. You'll find a lot of difference. So verbal communication extends beyond actual words. All audible sounds convey meaning, right? An infant's primary mode of audible communication is crying, as I told you. Crying is a cue to check basic needs, including hunger, pain, discomfort, temperature, cooling, babbling, whatever. So a newborn, what does he do or she do? When he or she feels hungry, he or she starts crying. So crying is the primary mode of communication when it comes to the newborn, till the time he or she starts speaking words. For any comfort, he or she starts smiling. For any discomfort, starts crying. These are very two simple things that can be of because of any reason, right? So cooing and babbling, also heard during the first year of life, generally convey messages of comfort and contentment. As children develop and mature, they have larger vocabularies to express their ideas, thoughts and feelings. Very fair. A newborn doesn't have any cognitive understanding of things. They doesn't have any words to express. But when the child grow, they have a set of vocabulary in their mind, so they start communicating based on the limited vocabulary. And as and when they start growing, they have different sets of words in their kitty, in their mind, and they start communicating effectively, correct? So the choice of word is very critical in verbal communication. The parent needs to avoid talking down to children, but should not expect them to understand adult words and phrases. Am I clear? Normally we parents do not care much about these things, but these are very sensitive issues and can be taken care of. Now, non-verbal communication, there is another important point, which is body language. Yeah, as I told you, the tonality, again, without listening the words, the children can understand what you want to convey. Similarly, body language, your body says a lot of things. So you communicate with the help of your body language, right? So from the gentle caress of holding an infant to sitting and listening intently to an adolescent story, body language is a factor of very good communication. Either you are carrying a child in your hand or you are communicating to an adult, your body language is going to give him enough information about how you are going to behave and are you really available for him or not. An open body stance and positive invite communication and interaction, whereas a closed body stance and positioning impede communication and interaction. So there are two things, an open body stance and a closed body stance. What are those? I'll be coming in just a few minutes, right? Body language I'm talking about here right now. Body language has two parts to it. One is the open body stance and one is the closed body stance. Am I correct? They effectively communicate while interacting with anybody. So using an open body posture improves the parents' understanding of children and the children understanding of parent. Right? Parents need to learn to read children's body language and should become more aware of their own body language as such. Correct? Am I clear? So now I'll be telling you how you can differentiate between a open body posture, right, and a closed body posture while communicating. Now, there are certain examples I'll be giving you for open and closed body postures. Suppose you are communicating with somebody is sitting in front, right? If you are leaning towards that person and communicating, that means you are having a open body posture. And suppose you are leaning away from the person whom you are interacting, that means you have a closed body posture. Very simple, you can understand. Now, arms looses at sides and arms folded across chest. Suppose we normally communicate sometimes like this. Okay, we have our arms folded across our chest. This gives a sense of a closed body posture, right? Wherein, I think you can see me. I was talking about this thing. If you have this kind of a body posture sitting when you are talking to somebody, right? That means you have a closed body posture. And if you are freely sitting like this, that means you are having an open body posture. Correct? Now, if you are having proper eye contact, you cannot be looking constantly into somebody's eyes, but a frequent eye contact means that you are having a open body posture. Correct? And if you are not having any kind of a eye contact, that means you are having a closed body posture. It's very simple. Now, next thing, if you are moving your hands freely, like what I am doing right now, that means I am having an open body posture. I am communicating to you in an effective way, right? If I close my hands and keep it on my hips, or I do not move my hand, that means it is a symbol of a closed body posture. Correct? Next point. Suppose you are communicating with somebody and you have a soft stance. Soft stance means you are very sitting very coolly. I mean to say is like you don't have stiffness in your body. Your body is not rigid like like a idol or something. You are not stiff. Your stance is not rigid. So if you are rigid, that means you have a closed body posture. And if you are not rigid, you are swaying slightly, you have a soft stance, that means you are having a open body posture. Right? Now, if you are having a head up, your head is up and you are communicating with right eye contact, that means you are having a open body posture. But if you are bowing your head below, you are not effectively communicating, that is a closed body posture. Correct? Now, coming to the next point. When you have calm and slow movements, right? Whatever you want to tell to the people, you have very calm attitude and your movements are slow, not very fast. You are not running for something. Correct? That means you have a open body posture. But if you are doing again too much of a motion, I would say too much, so that means it's the symbol of closed body posture. Although you are frequently moving and doing everything, but that is a symbol of closed body posture. Right? Now, a very effective tool in terms of body posture, if you are communicating with somebody, you are smiling, you are having friendly facials, right? That means you are having a open body posture. And if you have a negative facial cues and you are frowning, that means you have a closed body posture. Am I right? Okay. Now, not but last but not the least, conversing at eye level. Conversing at eye level is a symbol of having a open body posture, and conversing at a level that requires the person in front, especially the children, to go up and down. That means you are not having a open body posture. So these were certain examples of body postures, and these are very common. We can try and improve in ourselves while communicating. Correct? Now, timing is one very important tool in terms of communication. Recognizing the appropriate time to communicate information is a developed skill. Right? What time you have to tell your children what? You cannot keep on preaching him every time. So there has to be a time in which you communicate properly with your child. So that time has to be identified, right? A distraught child whose parents have just left for work, maybe not ready for a diabetic teaching lesson. Yes, am I clear? This timing is very much. Suppose a child has been scolded in the school, or maybe he is very hungry at that moment of time, and you want to call him and want to preach him about the lessons of life. That is not the right time to teach him. So he will not take it. Your communication will be failing here, because the receptive guy is not having that kind of a mindset wherein you teach and he grabs. So timing is very, very important. The session will be much more productive and informative and understood if the child has a chance to make the transition. So that transition has to be made from your side as well. The child has to come to a common platform, so that whatever you communicate, he listens, he understands. That is the purpose of communication. No? It is not just start speaking or he takes it or not. That doesn't make any sense. So that wouldn't be a good communication. Correct? So similarly, there can be a number of communications based on timing. In a family, you must be going through certain problems, and certain good things would be happening. So what time, what to do? Again, that is a family centered communication. It has to be effectively communicated with the families. So parents, there can be a number of things in terms of communication. What I told you today was the major. I'll be recapping it once again. The verbal communication, the non-verbal communication. Verbal communication relates to whatever words you are saying, but it has to be communicated by a non-verbal things which is going parallel to it, which is tone, tenacity, voice, loudness, and everything. Then you have eye contact, you have alertness, you have listening skills, you have physical proximity and visual communication, charts and everything. So there are so many things which I told you, and most important is one of the body languages. So if you work on all this, I think your child will be able to understand more whatever you are going to communicate to him or her, and it will help you understand your child, respect your child, and start giving a good communicative safe environment for him or her to ask questions right? So that environment has to be created. So friends, I'm done as of now. Now there was a question from Ms. Sinha saying there is a problem with the children related to no mood for studies. Fine. Nobody wants to study. No children want to study. When we were children, were also of the same thing. हम कभी पढ़ना नहीं चाहते, कोई बच्चा पढ़ना नहीं चाहता. Exceptions are different, but frankly speaking, कोई बच्चा पढ़ना नहीं चाहता. तो क्या करें इसके लिए? So you have to be, first of all, in terms of communication I was talking, you have to be sitting across him or her with a distance wherein you can have eye contact with him or her, and your voice should be normal, right? And he should be effectively talking to you face to face, eye to eye. Ask the problem, why he doesn't want to study. Is it a mood, or he has been bored of overstudying, or he has an interest of something else other than studies, right? So if you start effectively communicating, you'll come out with a solution. Maybe he doesn't want or she doesn't want to read for 4 hours a day, right? So you can start telling him to study for maybe 2 hours or 2.5 hours, and rest 1.5 hours can be taken care in some creative activities, right? You can tell the importance of studies, right? You can start asking what he or she is learning from it, because the pattern in which our system is working, they do take examinations, so you have to pass the examinations. So learning is one part, marks is another part, but you have to keep on communicating on a regular basis to understand and analyze if there is something else going on in his or her mind. So it's not only about mood, it's about understanding the things which is going inside a child's mind, right? So once you are there, he'll effectively, he or she will automatically tell you what he wants or what she wants or what is going in his mind. So once there, you are through, you'll automatically have a solution to it. So friends and parents, I believe I have covered a lot of things in this particular session, wherein I have told you about communication. So communication means a lot. Right from our birth to the end of life, we keep on communicating in different ways or the other. So that ways I have told you. Here, since we are concerned about children, it is very much required for us to boost ourselves and learn ourselves what to do and how to communicate with our children, right? So once we start doing it, I think we'll be good communicators in our own lives, and this will help our children also to grow better, faster. That is all in this particular show. Keep watching, and I'll request you all to keep asking questions in my forum, in my Facebook group page, or whenever I'm live. So I'm live every day in around 11:32, in between 11 to 2, 1 hour or 40 minutes. Normally I keep on being live. For any kind of a questions, I'm ready. So do ask questions and keep communicating in a better way. That's it for the day. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a nice day.